Ooh, look at that. Brushed my hair, eyebrows. That means I left the house. Anyway, so I'm gonna talk about His House. It's on Netflix. It came out very recently. It's like the last thing on my list for like 2020 releases to watch. So yeah, it came out on Netflix. And I was like suggested it a lot, and I thought maybe because it's like a Netflix release, so usually that does happen. You know, it's like, do you want to watch the Taylor Swift? No, I don't want to fucking watch. Anyway, so um, so I was like, all right, you know. And then I saw some people I follow on Tumblr who were kind of like talking about it. I'm like, all right, let me kind of look into this a little bit more. So this is like the horror version of like Tiger Tail. So it's like an immigrant story, but like with more like, you know, scary elements in it. Because whereas something like Tiger Tail, you know, it's an immigrant story and it's very kind of straightforward, you know, some flashbacks, all that stuff, you know, it's very straightforward. Immigrant story, bam. Whereas His House is immigrant story and then like some shit, you know, and it has a bit of like a my chair. It has a bit of my chair. It has a bit of like a Jordan Peele kind of, you know, feel to it. So it's like it's horror, horror. Man, my accent was really hard on that one. It's horror. It's horror. Anyway, it's horror, but it's not, you know, like the horror you know, it's not that bullshit. It's you know, the creep factor, the oh hell no thing, you know, when you see in the background, or you know, has like a bit of like an Insidious kind of vibe to it, you know. So I actually really enjoyed this one a lot. So um to kind of give a quick plot summary before I actually go into spoilers, because when it's a movie I like, I tell you when there's spoilers. If I don't like it, I just give it all away, because why does it bother? Wow. Why does it matter, and why should it bother you? That's what I was trying to say. But anyway, English is my first language. So, plot synopsis is it's a Sudanese, yes, a Sudanese couple who obviously, you know, have fled. They got themselves in England. I think it says like they're like right outside of London. That's really not like that part doesn't really matter. They, you know, they're in England and they're kind of like, you know, they're trying to survive in England and they don't want to go back because, you know, they do show the bad stuff. And if you obviously know about Sudan, you know it's not good, you know, all that stuff. So it's a lot of that, and it's them in their I guess you would say government aside. Wow, it's one of those days. It's a government assigned kind of like, I don't even want to call it like a halfway house, but like it's like, you know, it's like a low income housing kind of thing, where they have to live there and like be good for this X amount of time, you know, and of course they always got to check on them to make sure they're being, you know, upright citizens and stuff before they allow them to kind of like be free, you know, that kind of shit. So shit ensues, and then you kind of just like you follow them and all that stuff. So like I said, it's very, very good. It's you know, of course, the good horror elements are really good. You know, like I said, there are moments where I was like, no, it's not a lot of like, oh my god, I jump scare, throw the drink. Should be careful, that's actually full. You know, throw the drink, flip the table, you know, popcorn everywhere kind of thing, you know. But it's definitely when you're watching it, you're just like, you know, that kind of that kind of shit. So, there's that, and then of course, like the encompassing story of it being an immigrant story. You know, like as I've said before, I'm a child of immigrants, so it's like I definitely relate to it very much. I empathize with them a lot. You know, so like there are some things where, you know, there's some like racist moments or whatever that would happen, and I'm sitting there like, how, like just like mad and like wanting to like hold them, be like, I'm sorry, people are mean to you, you know, like watching it. But yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna go into spoilers 1 through 3. Spoilers. So you see that the couple, they have a child, and you know they have to go cross the Mediterranean, you know, and we've seen a lot of this sadly on the news, and people don't really talk about it a lot because they're like, who cares about black and brown people crossing, you know, large bodies of water for safety. They're like, they're just here to steal our jobs. Okay, because you want that, you were gonna do that job in the first place. Okay, honey. Anyway, so they go to like, it's like asylum, immigration kind of thing, and their, I guess, appointed person is Matt Smith. I'm like, okay. And so part of me is like, well, it's Matt Smith. He's most likely gonna play a good guy, because Matt Smith usually plays a good guy, unless it was like Terminator. But we don't talk about that. We don't talk about Terminator Genesis. We do not talk about Terminator Genesis in this house. So I'm like, okay. So, they send them off into, like I said, it's like low-income housing kind of stuff. And then they're told that they're given about 74 pounds a week to live on. Like, oh my God. I'm guessing because rent is paid for them because they're assigned these homes, like, I guess all you have to do is just, bread and cheese the whole time. I get it, So they get to the home, and it is quite large. Like, you would think it would be like a studio apartment thing, but they do have like a second floor and all that stuff, quite large, but it's really fucking rundown, Like, there's wallpaper, and there's like a scene where like the wallpaper was rolling down. I saw the mold, and I was like, oh, I can't. I was like, I can't. Like, that's horror for me. Just show me black mold, and I'm just, Anyway, so it's very rundown, and they're like, well, the lights weren't really working, and they're like, you can't have candles here, but we're also not gonna have the lights working for you. And I was like, the couple ended up obviously using candles, because would you just not? Would you not? Anyway, so so the couple, the husband, I guess not husband, like the boyfriend, the guy, he's trying to assimilate, So you see him like going into a shop and getting like a polo shirt and slacks, like whatever, like the white model in the picture, it's also, of course, like a retail, like fast fashion thing. So like the shirt's $7, the pants are 12, and he buys his girl, his lady, the outfit that the white lady's wearing in the thing, like the little kind of whatever, blousey top that kind of goes over the shoulder, slacks and all that stuff. And he's trying to assimilate. Like, he even goes to like a pub, and he like sings along, with the people at the pub, during a football game, again, like I'm trying to be a citizen here, I'm trying to assimilate, all that stuff. Whereas the lady, she's trying to hold on to her culture a lot. So she doesn't like wearing the Western clothes, She, she's, trying to like dress, how she does from her. It just sounds so like American, right? Like, she dresses how she is from where she comes from. But you get what I mean. Like, she has her hair wrapped, she's dressed. She's trying to like hang on, like, yes, I'm here because where I come from is terrible, but like, this is who I am, which, hey, I ain't gonna, shit on you for that, So there's a lot of that kind of dynamic, and and so, whereas in like Tiger Tail, the lady is like, she goes to like do laundry like every week so she can like see people and all that stuff. This woman, like, she just doesn't want to go out. And I think she had to like go to the doctor or something, and she had like a map, and she was getting a little lost with the houses. And it was kind of creepy because at one point, like, she kind of gets kind of lost in a weird courtyard thing, comes back, and it's like the same kid kicking around a soccer ball. And I was just like, I'm like watching it like, no, God. I have these horrible, like, not real, like, anytime recently because I'm in, home, but when I worked like horrible retail, I would have these horrible reoccurring dreams that I'm stuck in a building and I can't get out, It was probably my brain being like, get the fuck out of that shit job! Anyway, but yeah, it's like that. I was like, oh God, like, I just was like, and she approaches these like, kind of teenage black kids, and I bet for her, she's probably like, well, I'm black. Okay, someone's gonna take that out of context, but like, she's probably going like, I'm black, these kids are black, like, because there was, like, she saw like a white kid, she wasn't gonna ask the little kid, she was like, let me ask someone who's the fellow shade that I am. But those kids were being asked to her, they were like, what are you saying? And she's like, oh, she's like, I'm looking for Church Street. She has her accent. She's like, church. And the teenage kid's like, touch, like, being so condescending. And I'm just like, And then so, like, the three of them were being assholes. They're like, oh yeah. They're like, it's over there. They're like, no. They're like, no, mate, it's like over there. And I was like watching it, like, no, don't. Like, I hate that, like, I'm, the angry New Yorker kind of stuff, but if you ask me for directions, I will point you in the right direction because, like, I don't fuck around with that kind of stuff. Like, I'm an asshole, but, like, I don't fuck around with shit like that. Anyway, so, she's upset, she walks away, and those kids are like, hey, they're like, you're in England, speak English. And I'm like, honey, where did you come from? It's one of those, like, I was about to go off in a tangent about, like, the people of color that I've known and worked with who, like, bitch about other people of color who don't speak English, and I'm like, oh, must be great that your parents also know English, like, Anyway, that aside, so she ends up getting to the doctor, thank God, and me forgetting that we're talking about this is England, even though there's accents everywhere. But then again, I'm in this part of the U.S. where there's accents everywhere, and I'm just kind of like, oh God, how is she going to afford healthcare? Right, this is England, not the U.S. That's why sometimes I'm like, why did you come to the U.S.? We don't have free healthcare. I understand proximity. Anyway, so it's a lot of that kind of stuff, But then, so that's like the story of being an immigrant thing. So, like, the horror aspect is, like, in the house, they feel like there's something in the house, Like, you hear, like, thumping in the walls, like, the husband ends up, like, tearing, like holes in the wall because thank you, phone, because they see, like, you saw a child. You saw a child with, like, a mask, like a very, like in Us where the kid had to wear the mask, but the mask is fucked up. And it was, like, kind of, like, insidious because then it was just, like, it just showed up and I was like, no, And it was, like, crawling in the walls and, doing that creepy crawling thing and you're like, nah, So, it's a lot of that and he ends up kind of, like, tearing through the walls and all that stuff. He goes to the shop and gets his, like, $4 hammer kind of stuff. And at one point, the haunting stuff was getting so bad that the guy goes to Matt Smith, goes to the office and was like, hey, I need to move. And they're like, well, we can't let you move unless there's a huge problem. Which is fucked up because you assigned him this home with electricity barely working. Like, the dude ended up, like, doing whatever shit. And he got, the lights working, bless his heart, But then he was, like, tearing all that shit. But that's not the point. So it's like, you set him in a place where it's literally falling apart, electricity barely working. The dude, again, bless his heart, was able to get it, but then him trying to be like, there's rats, and they're like, too bad, it literally has to be, like, I guess fully, like, dilapidated or something, even though, like I said, there was, like, mold, and it's just, so they're like, well, we can't do that. So at one point, like, Matt Smith and other guy from the office comes in to, like, check the place out. They're like, all right, how bad is it? They saw the holes in the wall, and they're like, how big are the rats? And, and the wife just straight up is like, so the husband is trying, like, not to sound weird, and just being like, it's rats. Ugh, this is something easily digestible kind of stuff. But the lady is just like, did you tell them that there's a witch in the wall? And so, of course, Matt Smith and guy are like, they're like, there's a no. Then they're like, I'm not going to believe you, and no, you can't find another place to live, and also, we can tell you did this, So they were pretty much kind of like, fix this shit up, or you're out. Like, you gotta go back to where you came from, And so the story is a lot of that, like, happening, like, all this happening where, like, the witch, the thing, then they're saying the husband thinks it's, like, the items they brought with them, like, from Sudan, so, like, that's cursed, so he, like, burns it, which is why he went to the shop to, like, buy new clothes and all that stuff, to be, like, also to be, like, assimilate kind of stuff. The wife is like, no, it's not. Also, like, oh, the child they had, God, I forgot I mentioned that. The child they had, like, drowned while they were crossing I was about to say the Delaware, this is where, anyway, crossing the Mediterranean, so it's just them, and they're the only ones, like, not the only ones, but them and a small, like, a good chunk of people died because they drowned. So yeah, like, so, like, the wife is, like, trying to hold on to the thought of their child, and then, like, the dude is kind of like, it's a, you know, it's a lot of conflicting things, you know, and so that kind of goes on. And then we see more and more of the flashback of like how, you know, they got there, because before the movie just kind of starts off with choppy waters, bam, they're I almost said the US, Jesus Christ, they're in the UK kind of stuff. Anyway, so, you know, throughout the entire thing, again, flashbacks, flashbacks, and then you see that when they were heading to the last bus to like take them to safety, they were like, "Hey, we're not gonna allow any more people on this bus because it's full, and the only way you can get on this bus is like, you know, it's the women and children, like families kind of stuff." So the guy ends up just grabbing a random kid who was standing there, and it's like, "Oh, like child, I have a child," and they're like, "Okay, get on," and then the kid is like, you know, going on the bus and is like, Mom, like, you know, like the kid was just kind of like, okay, I'm confused. Then the kid's actual mom is like banging on the bus, like, oh my God. And the kid is like, Mom. And everyone else on the bus is like looking at them like, wow, like, you really did this. Like, you really just took someone else's kid so you can escape. Like, damn. So then, you know, you realize that, like, the lady the entire time thought that was her kid, you know, because it's traumatic. Like, we know, like, if you are, like, you are literally risking your life to have a better life because where you are originally from is horrible. We know it's traumatic, and we know what the US is doing and the amount of trauma they're causing on a lot of people. But anyway, so, you know, it's traumatic. So the lady, like, really thought, you know, with the trauma and stuff, that that kid was actually her kid, not realizing that it's not really her kid, that they even, like, stole and then end up accidentally, in a sense, killing, you know, because, you know, and it's just like, oh my God, you find that out and you're like, oh my God, that's so fucking horrible, you know? And you're thinking like, oh my God, you feel bad for this couple because obviously where they're from is terrible, but then you're also like, God damn, you're mad selfish, you know? At the same time, like, it's kind of like, what would you have done, you know? Like, you wanted to get the fuck out of somewhere, you would kind of, in a sense, I was just like, oh my God, like, it was really good. And then, like, for them to kind of, like, in a sense, succumb to the witch and like all this stuff, I really enjoyed this because it's like, me explaining it really sounds like insane, but like you have to really like sit down and watch it. It's, you know, because it's very like non-linear. It is linear, but then it jumps with flashbacks and all that stuff. I found that it's very effective to really understand, like, because you really go in there kind of knowing nothing, and then you're having like the couple's back, but then you realize you're like, oh God, you're not the best people, but then you still feel bad for them, you know. So then in the end, you're just, in the end, you are still happy for them because, you know, like, they got out and they're going to be upright citizens and they're like dilapidated, you know, assigned home. But also at the same time, like, it really makes you think of like, you know, like my privilege of being born in the States and just kind of like, here I am, you know, like I go off about racism and xenophobia and all that stuff all the time, but like I still have the privilege of being American born, you know, didn't have to like go through a citizenship thing and like didn't have to do all the stuff that like my parents had to do and other family members, you know, and seeing like them fleeing, you know, like my parents just kind of like, we're coming to America kind of stuff, but these people are, they're fleeing, they're refugees, you know, and it's just like, we gotta go, you know, and just to think to be like, I have to run, you know, kind of stuff. It's scary. And then the trauma of like, you know, being like, oh my God, I'm about to die. I might die. I might die. I'm on choppy waters, you know, on like a, you know, like to quote family, on a floating door, you know, like I'm barely getting out of this. Oh my God, I've survived. Okay, I'm going through an asylum process. Okay, I have to be on my P's and Q's. And you're like, yep. Like, just what that does to you. Like, it's so amazing how this movie did that. Like, I really liked it. Like I said, it's like the horror version of Tiger Tail, where that, you know, is an immigrant story, and this is also an immigrant story. But two different things, you know? A Tiger Tail is closer to how my family was, where it's like, we're just gonna head to the US, you know? Where, like, his house is like, ah! It's very much a, go, we gotta go! Like, just grab, we gotta go, we gotta go! And it's just trauma city, you know? Trauma fucking city. But yeah, so that was his house. Like I said, I really, really enjoyed it. I don't know what other movies I'm gonna review. It is like the holiday season where usually, more videos happen kind of stuff, but I don't get ads money. But anyway, so